All right, hey everybody, thanks so much for joining today. This is TAM Lab 90, setting up Workspace ONE Access SaaS with Horizon on-prem and the gotchas and solutions to make a seamless integration. And so today we have Joey Ware here, and he's going to be running us through. Real quick, Joey, before I hand it over to you, I just want to touch on one thing here. TAM customers can now submit session ideas. And so if you have an idea, you're listening online, go ahead and reach out to your TAM and let them know what you're interested in, and they can feed that back to us because we want to make sure the content that we have is relevant for you. So with that, Joey, it's all yours.
Thank you, Bill. I'm going to start sharing my screen as soon as Zoom decides it wants to.
Hey, there
okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. You are not going to get any more PowerPoint. From here on out, we are just running into it as that old little video or meme or whatever goes. We're doing it live. So let's see what we can do here. So for those of you who've never experienced Workspace ONE Access, it used to kind of have a different name of VIDM, the VMware Identity Manager. So that kind of happens in the background, but a lot of my customers are coming up and say, hey, we need something that we can do, like handle new hires, onboarding. When we buy new companies, we need some way to kind of give them access to all of our programs, all of our software, applications, whatever. So they reach out and say, hey, we want this Workspace ONE Access. So what you're seeing right here, this is my kind of home lab SaaS instance I've got because I am also showing a lot of customers this. So this is already set up. What we are going to go into is, okay, so from day one, when the customer gets a SaaS tenant setup, how they go from that day one install to day two running with applications and desktops. So getting into this, as you see, I got two desktops. This one's a floating pool that I just built with PowerShell. You can go back and see one of our old TAM Lab sessions where I set this using PowerShell. This is my jump box. And then a bunch of these are just SaaS applications that I use that I kind of just show off, right? My vCenter. If it's something that can have SAML that could pass you through, then it can just pass you through automatically, like vCenter does not. So it does require a second authentication. What we're trying to do here is not do that with VDI. With Horizon, if you do not set up the TrueSSO, you get a password prompt as soon as you launch this. And I'll show you that as we get it going. But what we're going to try to do is, okay, I've logged in with my user, and then I want to launch a desktop that user has access to. I may get a cert warning. Let's see if I got all through that. Okay, we're good. No authentication issues. Pass me right through. So your customer, you get an email, says, hey, log in this, click this link. It will take you to your SaaS tenant. A lot of times, ahead of times, customers will get like, what do you want your SaaS tenant name to be? Something like this. In our case, we chose TAM Lab. Please do not bookmark this because it will be deleted tomorrow. But this is just where we can go through and set this up. So my username is an email address that they decided to use and a password I set up. You will actually get some extra prompts that I wish I should have took screenshots of, saying, hey, do you accept the EULA, stuff like that. You don't get that screen because I went ahead, but there's nothing there. So I just logged in as the user. The first time you will actually log into the admin, but once you log in as a user and you are an admin, I'm the tenant admin, you just click up here and go to administration console. In the future, if you ever have any identity manager problems or identity IDP problems, it cannot authenticate you. If you are the admin, you put this at the end, it'll take you straight to this page. So I'll just kind of throw that out there. All right. There is a lot of good documentation out there on how to do this. I always refer to Carl Stallhood's Identity Manager. Now you're going to say, hey, there's a 20.x version. Why are you using 1903? To do any of the Horizon stuff, you can use the SaaS version, which is like 20.x, or the on-prem version of Workspace ONE 20.x, but the connector has to be the 1903. The 1903 is the only one that works with Horizon today. Not going into futures, but the BU who handles Workspace ONE Access understands that this is an issue. There's 3 different versions of VIDM out there right now. There's the 3.3 or 3.x version that vRealize Lifecycle Manager deploys, that it needs to build out everything with it. Again, the SaaS tenant is 20.x, and then this 1903. And if we go down here, Carl actually has good documentation here. Note the exact same thing I just said. 20.10, 20.01 do not support Horizon. Stay with the connector 1903 or 1903.01. Again, note again, 1903.01 only works with the 20.10 service. So I've had many customers use his documentation, so I always refer back to him. I've used it to help set up stuff. So we're going to go through his path, but I'm not going to refer back to his page. And there's a second one when we get to the TrueSSO. There is Mazhar Warsi. I'm really apologize if I messed up your name, sir. Understand and configure TrueSSO. He has great documentation on that as well. So we will be running through that. All right, so we're back to the admin page. When you first log in the first time, it'll actually take you directly to where you need to set up the connector. So we're going to go through Identity and Access Management. We're going to go Setup, and right here, Add Connector. We are doing a legacy connector. So anything that's 1903, 19 whatever is legacy. And I think it actually will tell you if you click on connectors, you opted to use virtual apps, please use a legacy connector, basically. So go back to that. If you wanted to reset the virtual app users and say, hey, I'm not going to do it, I want to use the 20. whatever connectors instead, you just hit this button. So we're going to add the connector. I usually just use whatever name for the connector ID, and then you will generate an activation code. I'll show you what we need for this code right now. Get this out of the way. Hopefully you guys can still see that. So this is my Windows machine that is the connector. It is a Windows service. You can find this by going to all downloads as your user. I prefer to go by category and look up access, right? It's already right there. Make sure you do the drop down 1903. As you go into there, we want the connector. So the standalone connector service. There's the 1903.0, 1903.01. Since this cloud tenant should be on the latest, the 20.10, I can use the 1903.01. And to save time, that install actually ran, and it took about 5-10 minutes on my machine, just because I'm using my home lab, which has resource contentions right now. So I did not want to waste time on this, but you go through, it will ask you several little questions. Are you migrating from a previous connector? In this case, no. So I left that box unchecked. The next step is fully qualified domain. It should automatically fill that out for you, but if you want to change it, you can. And then do you want to start the service as a domain user or not? I always choose yes, put a domain user in. Once that's finished, it'll actually give you a message saying, okay, install was successful. We need to launch the actual connector on 8443. So this is where we're going to go now. I'm going to copy this code, and it probably actually timed out over here. So let me refresh. Okay. So you will type in your admin user and password. We type it in the default one. Helps if you type it right twice the same time, or the same twice. Okay. Not taking me to the next page. Okay. So I'm going to put in that code that it generated from the SaaS tenant into here. So now it's actually communicating through the internet to the SaaS tenant. So we want to make sure that this connector has access to the internet. I think there is a KB article that gives you like all the IP addresses that this could use if you need to lock down your environment. That's something we can provide. Come on. This is why I didn't do the install, because it took a little too long. It's still doing it. Good. We're good. We're done with the connector install now. So if I go over here, press OK, there's my connector. But you notice there's nothing associated with it. No directory, anything like that. So now the next step is to add that directory. So you go back to manage, add directory. I am adding an active directory. This is my preference. You could do LDAP if you wanted to. This is my home lab. So again, your choice. Do you want to do Active Directory over LDAP or integrated? Since this is my Windows machine, this Windows server is in the domain, I'm going to choose integrated Windows. Here's your sync connector. That is the connector that we just did. And then by default, I usually leave everything. I am going to use my handy dandy username that I use for everything in my home lab. The password is just saved because I have Chrome saved it. Come on. Of course, when you want to demo something, everything runs slower. I apologize. I had to do this twice for a customer because I initially did Horizon 2012 with all new everything. The customer is using 7.11, so I had to revert back, try everything again. So I've done this a few times now.
So then this process is going back and forth between what you just set up in Windows and the SaaS tenant, right? Okay.
Correct. So the SaaS tenant is talking to the connector. That is all this connector is going to be doing, is basically talking back to your directory and anything that's on-prem. So in this case, Horizon. That's my domain. I am Ware. Don't wear it out. Hopefully people laughed at that. I apologize for lame jokes.
I did trip all over it.
So by default, Workspace ONE needs Workspace ONE Access needs all these fields right here, because to authenticate a user, it does a SAM account. It needs the first name, last name, and the email. You can go in and add more. By default, this is the thing. If you need to change it, like if you have some special fields, you can add those later. I will not cover that today, but there's definitely a way to do it. All right, so now we're going to sync a group. And this, since I'm doing Horizon, I sync the groups that are entitled to my pools. So if you do domain users, well, it's going to sync everybody that has those fields, that has the SAM account, first name, last name, and the email address. You will have an option here, and I'll show you, where you can override that, but you will get an error every time it syncs because now you just overridden a requirement. So in this case, I am going to sync my Workspace ONE Access group. And of course, I did not. You need the DN. So I wish I would have copied that. So let me jump in to my jump box. Just so you guys can see how well this works. Workspace ONE security group. It is here. I do not feel like copying or typing this all out, so I'm going to just copy it. And go back to here. That is not going to work because I do not have copy and paste enabled. So you're going to see a little troubleshooting. Do I have it here? Doesn't matter. I just closed it out. And if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask while I'm showing all this.
Yeah, Joey, we have a question in the Q&A on syncing Active Directory groups. This is from Leanne. What if you later are in a Horizon console and create a new pool and entitle to a new Active Directory group? Do you have to then go into the IDM admin UI and sync that new AD group?
So that's where some pre-planning kind of goes ahead. I would maybe have like this one is my Workspace ONE access group. I give that access to it, so it's I guess I can just show you. So my wife, my kids, me, any users I want to use externally, test users, whatever. If I just show you the members, right? That's my kids and my vRealize Lifecycle Manager. So if I was creating a group that was specific to one certain user, yes, I would go back in here because there is some limitations to doing, like say, all of the domain users. You will find out that sometimes it won't sync right, or the entitlements won't pull over from the desktop pool. So in this case, I may create a desktop pool that only me and my wife has access to, Joey and Amy. But since they are in this group, they will sync on here, and then the entitlements from the desktop will still pull over. So whatever you put in the Horizon entitlements, and I can go through that, will pull over as long as they're always in this group. So maybe an overall reaching Workspace ONE access group, you give access to everybody, and then you can still limit inside of which pools they have. Kind of makes sense. And I'll show you when you sync, it'll actually tell you what users get pulled in. So we sync that group, and I'll come back to that. I sync that group. If I want to specify certain users that are maybe outside of this group, you can directly put in their user DNs here. And that's not the case I want to do. So now it's going to review it. So I've removed a user. It actually didn't tell me what user that was, but I added a group, right? And we'll sync it. It takes a minute. Syncs is good. Domains, there we go. All right. To finish this setup, right now, if I logged in, and we'll show this. And Bill, we might run over just a little more than an hour, but I'll speed up in just a second.
Sure.
If I log into TAM Lab Preview, the domain's here, and user can remember this setting if they want to. You see what happened. I went from the cloud tenant to my connector. If this was a customer wanting to do this and they run into this, but they do not want to allow the connector inside access, like you do not want to come from the outside in, nobody really wants to do that. So what we're going to do now is set up so you can use the cloud deployment policy so that the cloud connector is always initiating a connection to Workspace ONE, the SaaS version, so it never has to come back in. It's already got a connection established, right? So we're going to get rid of this problem. And to do this, we need to go into setup. Nope, sorry, not setup. Manage identity providers. We're going to go into the built-in. So this is what is the default. I am going to enable the cloud deployment, but you notice I don't have a connector here. So add in your user, which is going to be the imware.net or your domain. You're going to select the connector we're using, and we're going to add the connector. And then now we have the password cloud deployment. Sorry, extract that. We do not need the certificate cloud deployment. We need this. So you come in, built in, select your domain, then you get the option to connect your connector. And then now we're going to do the cloud deployment. So in this case, if you only had Workspace ONE access on-prem and it never touched outside, you're fine. But what we're doing is outside of the network coming in. I'm going to save. So we enable that, but we have a policy we need to do, a network policy. For those, again, that's new to Workspace ONE Access, there's a lot of cool things you can do based on IP ranges. So if you have certain applications that are only allowed internally, you could block it down and say only when the user is on this IP range can they actually have access. It won't even show up in the catalog if they are outside of that. But for now, we need to edit the default policy. It's hard to see, but it says all ranges web browser, all ranges Workspace ONE app or hub app. So let me go back here. We're going to change both of these. The default is password, but we want cloud deployment password. Save it. Do the same thing for the hub, even though I'm not using the hub today, but who knows, maybe I will. Save it. Next, save. So if I open up that, again, I want you to use the incognito window here. Go to the SaaS tenant, boom. I came straight up to the auth control auth request, and then now I can log in as my domain user. Except for I didn't give myself access yet. But we just fixed that problem so that we don't have to go from outside in to authenticate. This is going to always authenticate us from the outside with a secure channel back. Okay, so now I got to add my user. Actually, I added my group, so let's go back and look at my group. It says it's not synced. Let's sync it. All right. Let me get out of this, go back into here and see why it did not sync. Of course, everything is going to mess up on
Live demo gods.
right, and that's what I get. Let's go into this one real quick. So this is my home lab test one. I wonder if that might be integrated. Changed. Okay. And that one pulled in. So this is what we should be getting. Figure out why it did not work on this tenant. Let's cancel. Uses different. Okay. Has there been any questions or anything pop up?
No, we're good.
Okay. Everyone's just watching me over my shoulder while I'm failing. Awesome.
So this is good. I mean, part of this is troubleshooting, right? Which isn't always the most straightforward thing.
Okay.
I joined late, and Jody said that you don't talk to people who joined late, but I'll ask anyway. Is this something that you're actually using for your own personal remote access, or is this just set up for home lab purposes?
Okay, so I am only using this for home lab purposes. So this is my test one that I will show off to my customers. When new versions come out, I'll test everything, make sure everything works. This one I'm working in right now is the one that we set up for a TAM lab.
Got it.
One group, 1 users were affected, 8 users were affected. Attempted to add. Okay. So it sees my users. Let's do one more sync, and then we're going to go see if they actually worked. Okay. Nothing changed. They didn't remove any. Okay. I'm seeing my users. I am in the TAM lab. Let's do this again.
So then likely it was the big change you made was that bind.
Yeah. You notice that the password was saved for my VIDM account, but it wasn't saved for my Joey account. So I wonder if that was the issue. All right.
That looks better.
We're in. Of course, I have nothing right now because all we've set up was we've set up the tenant, we've set up the connector. What we're going to do now is set up the Horizon on-prem side. So I need to get out of people. So if you go into the catalog, this is where you're going to set up either the SaaS apps or the Horizon apps or Horizon desktops. So in this case, we're going to do the drop down. We need to do a virtual apps collection. We're going to do new. This is where we can do Horizon on-prem, Horizon in the cloud, or we can do Citrix. So we're doing an on-prem. I have 2 connection servers set up for this. One so I could show off what was going on in mine. The second one we're going to do in here. So by default, I only have that one connector, so it automatically fills it in for me. I'm going to add a pod. So again, I'm going to put this name in, and that should have domain admin. We're not going to change any of this yet because I want to show what happens when you don't enable TrueSSO. So have you enable cloud pod architecture so that can go in for our customers that have 2 data centers. In this case, I do not. You can set the frequency, manual, weekly, daily, hourly. So hopefully our customers are not having to create pools every hour, but if they did, then they could set this up to be hourly. I'm just going to leave it for manual because that's just the way I am. User activated automatic. I don't actually think these will do anything. This option here, a customer will have to, if a new pool is added, you have to show them how to add it to the favorite section. So in this case, this is the default apps catalog. So when anything new pops up, it comes in the new apps. Favorites, this is the favorites. So if they wanted to add some of the favorites, they'll have to go in here, do this, add to favorites or remove to favorites. So that is what that is talking about, but this does not actually add to favorites on here. So And then you could change the client if you wanted to say, I want to use the HTML5 browser to launch the desktops or the apps, or you can actually use the Horizon native client. Sure, why not? Overview. Again, now we talked about that network policy earlier. So here you could actually, oh yeah, I skipped a step. Good. So this tells you what happens when you don't do this. I need to log in to my connection server, SSO2. I even have notes, guys, and I apologize. I didn't bring my notes up over here on what I need to do step by step. So I got a message saying that the SAML has not been enabled and try again. So log into your connection server. You're going to go into servers. Go to connection servers, edit your connection server, go to authentication. Now we're going to enable SAML. In this case, I am doing a loud. So what this is saying is by default, let's say your customer has an on-prem Horizon, but they don't want to come through Workspace ONE Access to authenticate to their pools. Some cases, some thin clients or zero clients cannot work through Workspace ONE. They have to go directly to a connection server or a VIP or some sort that connects for the connection servers, UAGs, whatever. So you can set it to allow so that they can still go directly to the connection servers and bypass Workspace ONE Access. If this is some special case where you're using Workspace ONE Access for everything, identity manager wise, then you'd want to probably set this to required. In this case, I'm going to leave it as allowed. And now we got to set up the connection back to the SaaS tenant. So in here, I'm just going to label it tamlab.ibmpreview.com. I just lost connection to something, but I always this is just me. I just label what the server name is going to be connected to. You're going to paste this back in here, and then we're going to make the connection. You don't need the administration URL. Okay, good. That went a whole lot quicker than everything else so far. So now it's enabled. I'm just going to press OK. So now if I go back to the screen, hit save. Maybe I did it too fast. Yeah, because I didn't press OK here. So let's try it again. There we go. Now it's been successfully added. If you had different ranges where you set internal only can get to these, the SSO2, you would have all this already created, or you can create one. Well, that's a whole different TAM lab session we can do in the future. So now this is all set up. So I'm going to go ahead and, since I said manually sync, you can either hit here and hit sync. I should only have one desktop pool. Yep. There's the VDI2, Win10, right? Good. And the assignments is like the entitlement. I'm going to sync it. If I go back into here and see virtual apps now, there's my desktop pool. Okay, and settings, nothing in here you need to change. All right, so I wish I would just keep my incognito window open. Come on. Hello. You guys can still hear me, right?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So I didn't lose internet.
Nope.
Okay. So go back to apps. What? Did I? That was weird. I don't remember asking for me to log in, but okay. Okay, that was weird. So even incognito was not supposed to keep cached, I guess it did. So there's my new app, right? So by not enabling TrueSSO, I'm going to get a second prompt for a password request. And it's going to be the exact same password that I logged into Workspace ONE with.
So, Joy, that was that password prompt there, or is it another one?
It's that one, right?
Okay.
So unlike here, my home lab, as soon as I'm logged into Workspace ONE, I apologize going back and forth, but I'm just trying to show it. I launch my desktop over here, TrueSSO enabled, it takes me automatically directly in, right?
Okay.
There's my VDI. Over here, we have not enabled TrueSSO. Over here, it's asking for a password. This is annoying. No customer wants to be able to do that. They already authenticated once. And in some cases, they're using Workspace ONE to do multi-factor authentication. So they already have a badge in or whatever. They don't want to type another password. So we need to go enable TrueSSO. Let me go back to here. This is done. Okay, to enable TrueSSO, we need to switch screens to the certificate authority. And I said I wasn't going to move screens. I apologize. That's the one that disconnected me. And so is my certificate authority. Okay. If you follow, so we are done with Carl. Carl Stallhood's documentation, we're good to go. Now, go back to Mazhar. Hopefully I'm saying his name right. He is actually pretty good on the documentation because he actually takes you back to the Horizon docs that tell you why you need to enable this or how to do it. In this case, how you need to set up your certificates. So hopefully your user has access to certificate authority. If not, they're going to ask the team that gives them access. They're going to go to certificate templates. They're going to manage. In the documentation, it tells you you need to create the certificates for the TrueSSO and the enrollment server. I'm not going to go through all of that right now, but what you're going to do is you're going to clone, you're going to duplicate the smart card logon, and you're going to make some changes. So let's just open that up real quick. I'll show you which one you need to change. Right here. So the compatibility tab, you need 2008 R2. Yes. You need Windows 7, 2008 R2. Okay. And it kind of walks you through all this. And when you're done making that these changes, you'll save it as TrueSSO. And then you'll create a template based on that called TrueSSO. In my case, I put a space in. I was testing something for a user, and here it actually tells you to create it as, it says TrueSSO. You can, a bit later on, it says no space, right? So I don't want to have to like spend a whole time. I'm trying to not be a certificate person. I'm not great on it. But this documentation, this one single page right here, tells you everything you need to do. So that certificate is created. The enrollment agent certificate is created. And on here, just so, again, it's in here, but you are going to only allow your enrollment servers. So in this case, you can either create a group and allow them read and enroll, or you can, if you only have one, you don't have to create a group, but I was playing around with it. The documentation tells you to create an AD group and put them in there so that if you create a third, fourth, whatever enrollment server, you just add that group and you're good to go. You don't have to mess with this anymore. If you have questions on that, let me know.
No, real quick, actually, we do have a question on the certs.
Okay.
Do you happen to know why the smart card logon is the one to duplicate?
I believe it's because it obviously has some settings already needed in place. But what we're going to do by enabling TrueSSO, that's kind of connection from the SAML is going to create a certificate from the enrollment server to the VDI. So you're not passing your password off to from the SaaS tenant to the VDI. It's actually creating a one-time use certificate in the background saying, okay, this user authenticated, here's his cert, pass him off, he's logged in. That kind of makes sense. So that's like what a smart card logon does.
Got
it. And again, it doesn't tell you anything in here about that. I think maybe another page will say that, but basically that's what it is. Okay. And go back to that page. So done with the certificate authority. I don't have to make any more changes to those. I need to go to the enrollment server. So let me get my enrollment server because I name everything specifically what they do. You're going to go in, launch the certificate store. Computer account, local computer. Okay. Those two certs you just made, you have to add the enrollment computer one here. So if you've never done that, you're going to request a new certificate. You're going to go through the process, Active Directory enrollment policy. Then you're going to do the enrollment agent. And then you're going to enroll it. You'll press OK. Now you'll have a new one for that process, right? I think it certificate request agent, enrollment agent. So you do that. The next step is we need to get the cert, and actually I'll just do it from here, from the connection server, the built-in cert that it creates for Horizon. We need to copy it from the connection server to the enrollment server so that it is paired basically with that server. You can just go in on the same thing, just add another certificate, computer account. I'm going to do another computer. As long as firewall policies are allowed for the customer to go through this, they can do this. I think in the documentation, it just tells you to do it on each server and then export it and copy it over. Come on.
Now, real quick, you're able to request that cert from your enroll server because of those permissions you put that said
Correct.
These specific ones. Okay, perfect. So
Yeah,
any other computer should fail. Any other server should fail unless
they won't even see it if they're not in that security group.
Oh, good point. Okay.
Yeah. And of course, I just break it. So maybe I will just do it from here. Account, this computer, thank you. All right, in the documentation, it will tell you need to go to the Horizon View certificates, and you need to get the one, and then point blank, it's the one with the long one, long GUID on it, but it's also the one with the friendly name VIDM EC. So you will export this. You do not need the private key. Just leave everything else the default. Name it. In this case, it tells you to name it the enroll client and save it somewhere where you can copy it and then import it. Of course, now it comes up. And then you're going to import it into the Horizon View enrollment server trusted routes. So in this case, I've already done that. Just so you can go through the process, import. You're going to locate the enroll client. I'm going to cancel because I do not want to break it. And enroll client. And as you can see, I do not have the friendly name. It actually tells you to set that friendly name right here and add the friendly name. So the one that we exported on the connection server side, you just name it right back again. Now, don't want to save? No. Let's minimize this for now. I have not installed the Enroll server yet. And if you go and look in the Horizon downloads page, there's nothing called Enrollment server. How do you install that? You use the connection server installer. I believe I already have it installed, but I'll just run through this just the first step here. If it'll let me, if it doesn't tell me to modify it. And again, this is one of the reasons I try to pre-install everything because it runs slow. Okay, so I do have it installed already. Just right here on the document page, Horizon 7 Enrollment Server is what you're going to choose. And then it'll ask you, what's the authentication mode? Well, in this case, we're doing on-prem, so Horizon 7. We're not doing Horizon Cloud. Okay. Yes, cancel. Thank you. You are now done with the enrollment server process. We have to go back into the connection server and now tie everything together. I do not want to save that. So as you go through here, it's this stuff now. In my case, I already have all this copied. So I'm just going to copy and paste. Let me copy the first one and I will show you what I'm doing here. Okay, the first command we're doing is using the VDM util, and we are authenticating as another user. I did this user so that I do not have to share my password. So hopefully that saves some time editing, Bill.
Thank you.
And then so we're on the connection server. We are adding the enrollment server to pair it, and this is the CS Enroll 2. So that's where I was on a while ago. Hit enter. It may take a second. Enrollment server added to the environment. Now the next step, we have to create copy this one, paste it. So now we're actually we're going to list, and it should give us the information we need going forward. So this is the enrollment server 2 is what we're doing. This is the domain. The cert is valid, and my certificate authority. So I don't have a forest. We're just doing the domain, right? Now we're going to take that information that it gave us, paste this. So again, authenticating again. Now we're going to create a connector for the TrueSSO. In this case, I put quotes. If you follow the documentation, he does not put quotes right here. But since I created a space in my template, make sure you put the quotes around. Should be common sense. I missed that a couple times after making that change. Now, certificate server, this one kind of caught me by a little bit by surprise. It's not asking for the fully qualified domain name. It is asking for this name, which is your certificate authority. So I just want to point that out. If you go through this and you kind of like me, you have it all saved to a Word doc or a notepad, just so you can copy and paste easier. If you do this second command and the third command first command and the second command a little too fast, it may say cannot pull information from enrollment server. So give it about 5-10 seconds and then do the second command. Wait for that, do it again, do the third command. It's taken a little bit of time here.
Yeah, hit it again there. Oh.
Let me paste this again. I think it's because I had a whatever, like a block I was going to record or a copy.
Yeah.
So get rid of all that. So now we are making the connection, the connector and everything, so it's enabled. Next time, now we're going to do the last two commands. We're going to list. Again, wait a few seconds. It may just be in my environment, everything's running slow. That's why it takes a little bit of time. So now I just paired it with the authenticator. So I'm totally skipped a step for you guys. So it is already paired to the TAM Lab VIDM preview. So that's the SAML that we created earlier. So it's telling me it's already authenticated there. Now the last command. And you see TrueSSO is disabled. We're going to enable it now. So for I cannot do command and paste very well. Probably because I'm a Windows user.
You
Thanks,
use
Bill.
next finish, right?
Yes. Oh, you know what? It's probably because I got that copied. What?
Now hit enter one time. Hit enter. Yeah, there you go. Now do it. Dude's losing its mind.
I think it's me losing my mind.
It's you losing your mind.
Okay. I just want you to see like what you could mess up. Okay, so now we're going to enable TrueSSO. All right. Enable if no password. There is two options you can do, and in the documentation, it will tell you for TrueSSO mode, enable if you want TrueSSO to be used if no password was supplied when the user logged into Identity Manager. In this case, if a password was used in cache, the system would still use the password. But if you use always, even if a password was supplied, in the case it was cached, the user would be logged in. This would always use TrueSSO. So in my case, I'm just going to leave it no password because I'm trying not to cache anything. All right. Two more settings we need to do, and then we'll test it and we'll be done. So go back into your connection server. We're going to make that edit. I always enable TrueSSO integration here, optional. Again, you may have some thin clients or whatever coming through. If they need to and not use the Workspace ONE, they don't have to. I just make it optional. Go back into the SaaS tenant. Go back into the virtual apps collection. And remember that little toggle switch I said we'll worry about that later? We're going to worry about it now. We're going to edit. Next. Edit the pod. TrueSSO enabled. So that kind of just gives you the information there. Save it. Don't think you need to sync it, but I am going to do it just in case.
So now what we should see is when you launch that, when you re-authenticate, it should not prompt you for a password. It should just go ahead and create that cert on your behalf and then automatically log you in, right?
Yep. So here we are. This is that one I didn't close this time. I just did a refresh, but now it launches directly in. I did not get that second password prompt.
And we saw that prompt early on.
Correct.
In the process. Okay, cool.
So now you have a seamless integration across Workspace ONE Access to a Horizon on-prem environment. Do I have any questions?
So real quick, what were the moving parts? So you had the SaaS server or a SaaS solution up there. Mm-hmm. You installed, what was the first thing that you installed?
So
the connector?
You have the SaaS tenant. You'll get an email from VMware if you have a SaaS tenant enabled for you saying, log in with this account. The first time, it's kind of like one of those reset passwords. You hit that button, it'll actually set you to change your password or set your password. And then you have a Windows server that is the Windows Connect or the Workspace ONE Access connector. You set the connector up. to pair basically with the SaaS tenant.
Got it. So then from that perspective, you've set off authentication on-prem to the SaaS environment with a connector. So you could, in theory, just stop there for some use cases.
Yeah, if you're not using Horizon and you just want to use like SaaS apps and create them, so you won't need to. You could actually use the 20.x connector.
Yep.
If you're doing Horizon, you have to use the 19.x connector, and then after that, what we did is the Horizon. In this case, my Horizon pools or pods, all that was already created.
Awesome.
And then we just paired the enrollment server to the connection server and then enabled that. So there we go. I had to show this real quick. That is anytime anybody logs into one of my desktop pools, that's the first thing that pops up.
Love it. Love it. Okay. And then the second part for the TrueSSO was, which components were those?
So that is, we need the certificate authority. So hopefully customers already have that set up anyways. You have to create the 2 templates, and then you register the TrueSSO or the enrollment computer agent on the enrollment server. Then you take the default Horizon certificate, the friendly name vdm.ec, you export it from the connection server, you import that into the enrollment server in that one folder, and then you have to go back to the connection server and run these like 5 commands. It's kind of a lot to run through. We got it done just a little bit under an hour, or right at an hour, hopefully. The customer's environment hopefully is not running as slow as mine, so they can get it done a little bit faster. But I've heard customers like, oh no, the enabling TrueSSO is so difficult. Really, what it is they may not have access to the certificate of authority, and that's where they kind of run into some stumbling blocks. Maybe like the security department handles that, not the operations team or engineering. So they just have to work together and get that solved. Any questions? All right.
No more questions in the Q&A. You're good.
Sweet. I appreciate everyone stumbling with me. Hopefully this works well for you and your customers.